and who can remember the more more moves with the variations. This is very we can say this is very theoretical line. Again, I'll repeat this thing because in this opening there are many variations in the Grunfeld defense, and this is very this opening is played by the many top grandmasters like Bobby Fischer, Magnus Carlsen, Vishwanathan Anand, and Bobby and of course Gary Kasparov many times. It was one of his favorite opening. Let's start with this opening. Okay, it start with the black. This is a black defense. We call it Grunfeld defense. White played d4, and black start or black reply with the knight f6. So black played here knight f6, d4, knight f6. White will go with the c4. Black will go for the g6. Now in this line, after this move particularly, white will go for knight to c3. Of course, white can play the knight f3 also, but this is not a good move for the white because if you are a Grunfeld player, where white played knight f3, you can take advantage of this knight. We'll discuss that later. So white played knight to c3, and here most of the player makes a mistake. They played bishop g7. But here you need to be careful. Do not play bishop g7. You have to, because if you play the bg7, white will just push his pawn to e4, and now white will have complete control. Now the objective of the Grunfeld here to attack in the center. That is a basic objective of the Grunfeld defense. So here we are going to play. We are not allowing our opponent to play e4. That's why we are going to play e5, d5. Now after d5, if you want to test any opening, the main line, you should play the main line. You should study first the main line up to the 10, up to 15 to 20 moves, and then go with the side variation. Many chess players think how to study one particular opening with all the variation. So if you want to study any opening, first understand its classical line. First play is main line, and in the Grunfeld, the main line is exchange variation, where white is going to play the c takes d. So white is playing the exchange variation, which is a main line, and it's most popular line in the Grunfeld. Knight takes d5. White will go with e4. Knight takes c3. B cross c3, and bishop g7. This is the basic basic moves of the Grunfeld. White will go for the bishop c4. He wants to play bishop d3 is not a good move. Bishop c4 is directly attacking the f7 pawn. Then black will the c5. This is the main plan, as already discussed. Our target to attack on this center pawn. Now this is the how we call transforming strength into weakness. Now here, if you ask me for the white in the opening, this is his the center is his strength for the white. And what we are planning to attack on his strength and creating a weakness in that. Now, if white wants to keep his center, he have to defend this pawn structure. Now, the problem with the white is generally we see the white have to attack. But the problem here, if white attack, he will lose his pawn center. And white wants to defend his pawn center, he is going to lose the opportunity to attack or take an initiative in the opening. Black is trying to undermine white center right away. So it's the next move, knight e2. Of course, white can go for knight f3 here. Many black players immediately jump and play the bishop g4. It's actually blunder. If you play bishop g4, white will sack bishop cross f7, king cross f7, knight g4, and of course you are, after taking back your king, you're losing your bishop. So here you need to be a bit careful before playing such move. So if you play knight f3, you can just go for the castle. Here is the line. You can, if white go for the castle, you can just pin his knight with the bishop. If white does not want to allow his bishop on g4 and cause any trouble, he shall play knight e2, and that's why in the main line white will go for knight e2. This is a better than knight f3, because here if black puts his bishop on the g4, white will be able to block the pin by the moving f pawn. We'll see it soon. Uh, Now let's see the next move. White, it's a black move. Black will just go for the castle. Best move. White will also play the castle, and we immediately play knight c6, again creating pressure on this pawn, center pawn. This is our target in this game. So bishop have to support. And if you see in this game, in this positional structure, white is defending and black is attacking. Generally, if you see the games, white is attacking position always, and black is defending. In this opening, black is attacking and white is defending, and that is actually very interesting here. Now, after bishop e3, one more defensive move from the white side. We are playing one more aggressive move, is bishop to g4. And now that's we have discussed. That is a just the improvisation of knight f3 to knight e2. Because after playing knight e2, as I discussed, white can play f3. With this f3, uh, there is one problem developed for the black here. What we should do with this bishop? There's one game which is played by the Peter Swidler. Peter Swidler played the bishop d7, but if you see, with accuracy, this is also not very favorable move for the black, because this bishop is just at the d7, which is not doing, or you can say, which is not helping black anything for the in development or in advantage. So what should black go here? So black is like exchanging the bishop here. Black is planning to give his bad bishop against good bishop. Like, now black will try to give his bishop, which is a bad bishop, because it doesn't have any good square to play, and he will try to take his good bishop. So knight to a5. Now if white capture this bishop, will just capture his bishop and attack on the second piece. Now he is having double pawn, and he is having a lot of pressure on the center. uh, of course there is a tactical move for the white. Okay. Of course, bishop g4 is not a best move, because it is clear that white is going to meet with f3. And knight a5 right away was the better for the black. So it's, of course, it's not a good move, but after playing f3, black is having one good move, which is knight to a5. But white is having a counter attack on this move, which is bishop cross f7. With the bishop cross f7, of course, we have to go rook cross f7 and the pawn takes g4. Now, in this position, white is actually a pawn up. And with this pawn up, if white keep his advantage up to the end game, which is a material advantage right now in this position, white is having very good chance to win the game at the end. But that's not easy to keep that material advantage up to the end. And second thing, if you remove all the pieces, if you put the 3 pawns against the 2 pawns, this game could be draw in the rook end game. So that is also chances this game could be draw if white black exchange all the pieces and having 3 pawns against 2 pawns in the king side. Of course, there is one more move of instead of bishop cross f7, there is one move which is called a bishop d3 variation. This move was also worthy consideration. White's position is substantially better in this position. He can try to exchange only powerful piece of the black, which is called g7, putting the queen on the d2 and then bishop h6. So white plan is to play bishop to queen to d2, play bishop h6 and exchange this bishop. One more here, if black after exchange white will go for bishop to e6. And in this line, there is a very good famous game which is played by Topalov versus Alexei Shirov. And on the same line, where Topalov played the line which is d5. He is giving his bishop, and Alexei taken this bishop, queen takes bishop, and white intentionally given his rook after f6 because pawn takes pawn is not possible, and he's taking this long diagonal with the bishop s6 and planning for pawn push f4 and creating a pressure on this king side. it's very difficult game for the black to defend after having even exchange up. But we are now today we are looking the classical variation, which is exchange variation with the f7. So bishop cross f7, rook takes f7, f cross g4, and now here, of course, black will should go for the rook cross f1. Now many player makes a mistake here. They go with the queen takes rook. They don't want to move their king from very solid position of g1. But here, if you play the queen takes rook, it's actually a blunder because after knight c4, uh, bishop have to go back, and then queen knight to d2, and of course you're winning a pawn because after moving the queen, you're winning a pawn. So rook takes f cross g4, rook cross f1. How to go with king cross f1? This is the only move. Will clear the center, c cross d, exchange a pawn. White is a pawn up, but the structure is not so good. If black will be able to grab the initiative, then it might be a problem for the white, which we are going to see how black should take the initiative here, and black will go for the e5. If white takes his pawn, the game will be neutralized because after bishop takes, it will be a fork, and the second a queen will be get exchanged, and this game will be very equal. Uh, but if you want to keep, white wants to keep in this game, white have to play d5. Now things are even better for the white. He has a protected pass pawn, so the good strategy for the white is now will be try to exchange all the pieces and go for the endgame. That's a white plan. And what's a black plan? Do not exchange the pieces. Okay, keep the initiative. Bring the queen, knight in the territory of white, and create a pressure at the king side because king is now in center. He's very unsafe. So knight c4. Now here, uh, which Kramnik versus Kasparov one game played, and that game was draw, and it was actually very tough for the Kasparov to make it draw. Kasparov sacked his pieces and then made it draw in the end, but Kramnik was a very up hand in that game, which Kramnik played queen to d3 move. Okay, we'll see this line also queen d3 because we have already discussed bishop to f2. Because in bishop f2 will immediately go queen f6, king g1, rook f8. Of course, he cannot capture this pawn because pawn will get pushed and bishop will trap. So queen e2, and now here we can go for the bishop h6. This is one move which is available here. So we'll go for bishop h6, creating open diagonal here. Knight g3 and queen a6. The plan of queen a6 is very simple. If you play rook to b or if you play rook to d, we'll just sack our rook takes bishop, queen takes, and then bishop to bishop to e3 and just create a skewer in this queen. If you take king takes, and then again more trouble because if let's see if you play rook to d something, we'll just sack this rook, king takes, and then play the queen b6, and king had to only one move, and then queen check, and having a lot of trouble for the white. But now here we are going to say bishop queen to d3 move, which we have not covered in the last class. Queen d3. Now, yes, of course, you can go for rook to c8, but this rook is more powerful in this f5. If you play here, black should go for the b5. Now, there's two things. One is supporting this knight. Second is you are developing the pawn. And black's plan to develop both the pawns and exchange this pawn and make a passer here. G5, of course, stopping this bishop to go on h6. So this bishop now is not possible. So bishop cannot go. This diagonal is also packed. This diagonal is also packed. So there is only one diagonal which is available for the black. Not the best move, personally. I do not see any reason for this move. Just accept this. Blocking this bishop. This pawn is g5 might become a target for the black after some time because now this pawn is actually weak. So it could be a target for the black because this knight can come back also. So that is also a possibility. queen takes, then you can take the pawn and having a lot of pressure on this pawn. Bishop f8, of course, developing the one more piece. Knight g1. The plan is to play knight on f3 and create a pressure on this e pawn, and knight cross e3. This is an interesting move because the knight on c4 is, my opinion, is a better piece than the bishop on e3. In the game of Kramnik's versus Gary Castro, Castro didn't go for the bishop knight cross e3, which is not very recommended move. And Castro kept his Castro played different moves, but he didn't up to the end game. He not exchanged his knight against bishop. Because this bishop is pretty much strong here. It's bishop in the fourth rank, and fourth rank knight is actually equal to the bishop. Uh, so theoretically, black should not go for the knight takes bishop, but in this game, he gone for knight takes bishop. Of course, bishop is a better piece in this position. From the practical perspective, the exchange is surely justified. If you say knight against bishop, you should capture the bishop against knight, because in the end game, bishop is more powerful. But I'm sure it's not a best move. Obviously, simple queen c7 would be work better than that. Queen takes and the queen b6, immediately want to go for the exchange. Now, who is beneficial if we black go for the exchange? White is having one pawn passer, which can be stopped with the king. That is one, and black will have one pawn passer from this position. Uh, Black will get more benefit because black is having a bishop, and after this pawn pass, black will have a good position in the end game, because knight is actually on still having, so 2 to 3 moves to develop his knight. So queen c3, and now he pushed the pawn b4. Queen c4. Now he want to give a discover attack here, and the bishop d6 stopping that pawn. King e2, e5, and knight h3. I personally feel knight f3 is actually far better move, but maybe this player thought this knight on f3 will not lead to any good squares here. So even he cannot having a very good square. So he had to go back, and again from this, it's tough for the knight. So knight h3. Yeah, this game was played in Bali Lok versus Nijabor Friso, and both are the very strong grandmaster. Okay, both having rating above 2,600. This game played was in 1996. Now black is equalized the position. He has advantage the pawn on the queen side, improve the position of his bishop, activate his queen, and white should have put his knight on f3. But white had gone to knight to h3. Uh, let's see. Now rook on e1 could be the move. Now a4, black is creating a pressure. Now if you're a Grunfeld player, please understand this strategy, how black should play, where black should create the pressure on the white. Black is simply putting his pawn, pushing his pawn, and creating passer. Knight f2, queen d8. The wrong maneuver of the knight destroy this position. Now again, at few minutes back, I have discussed that this pawn could be a target for the black. So now it's the wrong maneuver of the knight destroy the position. It was the time to give a pawn on g5 back. So queen c1, supporting this pawn, because again the playing h4 is again creating a weakness, because in the white's territory. Queen c1, rook c8, queen d2. He wants to save his, because if you want to save his, then again he have to back his knight. But the problem here, that this light square diagonal will be very positive for the black. Rook c4, attacking the second pawn, king f1, and now queen f8, pinning the knight. Queen e2, bishop to c5, sacrificing the rook. Of course, he cannot take the rook because it will be a checkmate. Queen f3, exchange, want to exchange for the queen, and now bishop to d4. Now, if we go for the queen takes queen in this position, the black is completely better in this game, because after this, bishop takes, king takes, rook check, and take a pawn, and they're just two moves away from this winning. Of course, your bishop takes knight and again winning the center pawn and having one, two pawns. It's a huge deal for the huge plus for the black. So he played rook d1, rook c2, knight g4, and now queen cross f3, g cross f3, simple king f8, d6 because he want to reach to this pawn, d6, king e8. Black has two pawns on the queen side which are very advanced. The rest of matter of the technique. So f4, b3, a cross b, a cross b, f cross e5, b2, knight f6 check, king f7, d7, and now simple bishop to b6. And here white resigned because even if you push the pawn, this is bishop takes pawn, rook takes, and creating your queen. Second, even if you white cannot move his king anywhere, so he cannot get a escape. Next move, he's going to just play the rook, and it will be forcefully to exchange. Then you make a queen, and of course, after rook exchange, king can play here and stop this pawn. So this is a good game played by two grandmaster in the Grunfeld defense. This was the exchange variation Grunfeld, and this is the we have seen the queen d3 line and the bishop d in the Grunfeld exchange variation.